Welcome to Absolute Trust Talk with your host, Kirsten Howe. Absolute Trust Talk brings you tips, tools, advice, and interviews to help you build a reliable knowledge base on estate planning, business, and finance to start preparing for your future today.
Hello and welcome to Absolute Trust Talk. I'm Kirsten Howe, and this is our video podcast at Absolute Trust Counsel. I am joined here today by Jessica Colbert, who is one of our associates at Absolute Trust Counsel. She's relatively new to what we call in our firm the after death side of our practice. She's for years worked on estate planning with us, and now she's learning the after death side. So I think she's the perfect person to have on this episode. We're going to talk about trustee and executor do's and don'ts. And let's just start by Jessica explaining what is the difference between a trustee and an executor.
Yes, a trustee is someone who is named in a trust document to administer the trust after the person who created that trust passes away. On the other hand, an executor is someone who is administering an estate, meaning that those assets were not owned by a trust, and that person needs to be appointed by the court.
Okay, and just to be clear, when we use the word executor, it also is meant to include what technically would be called an administrator. When someone has a will and they name someone to be their executor, they are called the executor. When someone dies without a will and we have to do a probate, technically are called an administrator. But today we're just going to use the word executor, and that we mean to include both. Whenever you're doing a probate, whether you're an executor or an administrator, we're talking to you. Okay. So thank you for getting us all speaking the same language, Jessica.
So looking at both of those roles, what do you find that your clients in those roles, what is their biggest misunderstanding?
I think that it boils down to really not appreciating what the job is. And that's a couple of things, but maybe the biggest one is they don't realize how big a job it is, how hard a job it is. Most of our trustees and executors are family members. They're not professionals. We do work with some professional fiduciaries. These are people who do this kind of work for a living. But most of our clients are family members. This is not what they do for a living. They might be engineers. They might be artists. They might be teachers. This is not what they do every day. And so they don't know how to do it. First of all, they need a lot of help. They need a lot of coaching from us. And it's just not natural for them. They don't think like a trustee. They don't think like an executor. So that's a challenge. It can be a lot of work. Every case is different. Some of these cases are a lot of work for the trustee. They take the role because they're good family members. They've been named and they are willing to do it. But then they're smacked up the side of the head with, oh my gosh, this is a lot of work. The other thing I think that they don't necessarily appreciate is that they've got a responsibility. Once they take the job, they are a fiduciary. And what that means, it's a word that you probably hear a lot if you have a financial advisor or you've talked to a financial advisor. But the word fiduciary means that you put the interests of another ahead of your own interests. And in this context, you are putting the beneficiary's interests ahead of your own interests. And that means you have to do the job. You don't get to decide not to do it. If you've taken the job, you have to do it because you have this responsibility to these beneficiaries. And that can be a challenge, because like I said, our trustees are mostly family members and they have another job. They have a day job and they're used to having Saturday and Sunday off. Well, if you take on the job of trustee, when are you going to do it? Your boss is not going to be happy if you do it while you're supposed to be doing your day job. So it can be a challenge, is what I would say. And I think there's one particular aspect of this job that tends to be the most challenging. Jessica, do you want to talk about that for a bit?
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. And it is record keeping. The executor or the trustee has to keep very careful records. They need to stay very organized, keep on top of everything that they're doing. They need to keep very careful financial records of everything that's coming in or out of the trust or the estate. And they need to keep track of their time serving in that role.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's the aspect of our work with our clients who are trustees and executors that's the most challenging for us, because in the end, before the executor is relieved of their duties before the trustee distributes out all the money to the beneficiaries and steps down, they've got to produce an accounting to the other beneficiaries. And it has to show every single thing that has happened since our decedent passed away. And that's just not the way most people think, that every single thing has to be accounted for. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. And we find that we ask for things. We say, okay, we give them a list. This is what we need to do your accounting. And they come back with maybe 5 of the 9 things on the list. And then we have to, no, we still need this. And then they come back with it, but it's incomplete. We need all the statements. And they send us, 6 months worth of statements when we need 13 months worth of statements. It's hard. And we understand that because we know these are not professionals. It's not what they're used to. And so it's a challenge. But the bottom line advice here is, I think you've got to do the job and you really have to keep good records and keep them current. I do think that one of the challenges that our clients tend to have is they come up to a deadline and they've got to produce all this stuff. They've got to put together an accounting, but they haven't touched it for 3 months. Now they got to go back and, redo 3 months worth of transactions. Don't do it that way. Keep your records current. Do it every day. Write something down every day, and it's so much easier. Okay, Jessica, anything you want to add to that conversation?
No, I think that your advice to keep it current is great advice.
Well, hopefully there are trustees and executors out there listening, and they're going to take that to heart. So thank you all for listening. I hope you learned something. I hope you were entertained at least a little bit. And I look forward to connecting with you next time.
Thank you for joining us today for another episode of Absolute Trust Talk Live. If you enjoyed listening in, then don't forget to subscribe. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may listen by searching Absolute Trust Talk. While you're there, we would also love for you to leave us a review. And then why not share your favorite episodes with family, friends, or colleagues too? You can find all of our shows and corresponding show notes by visiting absolutetrustcounsel.com. You'll also find a variety of other free resources, including our ebooks, videos, blogs, presentations, and more. If you need help with your estate planning or administration, we also offer a free discovery call to help get the process started. You can find more information on booking your session by visiting absolutetrustcounsel.com/scheduling. If you join us for the broadcast, you can submit questions during the show. But if not, don't worry. You can always get in touch with us by sending a quick message to info@absolutetrustcounsel.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you soon.
This podcast is not meant to take the place of legal advice from an attorney and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you do have a legal question or issue, please consult with an attorney.